Welcome to the Declutter Diaries. I'm your host, Bonnie Hintonack with Bin Your Space. And with me, you'll meet Tina Wolf, a licensed therapist. We are going to explore the connection between your mental health and organizing and decluttering because it's a journey and we're on it too. Hi, Fred.
Hi. How are you?
What's going on over there?
I'm readjusting microphone and all the things to make sure that you can hear me.
Gosh.
Me and Bob have
Can we
gotten...
give it a different name?
Clarence.
Is that the angel from It's a Wonderful Life?
Yes, it is.
She's just about to close up the library.
Anyway, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Are you good?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm great. My house is pretty clean. My space...
Your eyebrow twitched a little bit when you said that. Just this one.
Oh.
So
is my house really
is your
clean?
house really
Is my
clean?
body having a visceral response to the fact that I'm fabricating because I don't realize in my own psyche that my space is not as clean as it should be?
We're getting right into it.
Oh, goodness. What's our topic of conversation today? I forgot already.
That's okay. We're talking about out of sight, out of mind.
Oh boy.
I feel like Rick theory is going to come back into play. I feel like this is how it started, honestly. But
And the accommodations, I think a lot of things are going to be tied back in today. Oh, man. Out of sight, out of mind. That's my life. Or at least it was my life in the beginning. When was the first time you helped me edit/organize? Was it my office? Was it my linen closet? Was it my pantry? I don't remember.
I feel like it was your linen closet. But the
But then
kitchen
I
was a
think-
close second.
I thought it flowed into my office.
I have to look back at pictures.
Okay. Anyway, so when I think about the different steps that we've taken,
Yep.
kind of when you started Bin Your Space, when I don't even think it was Bin Your Space then, it was just a concept in your mind that you were going to do this. We started with spaces in my house and I realized how much chaos there is when things are stuffed in a closet, stuffed in a drawer, stuffed in a bin. And we talked about this in Rick theory, I think, that I used to shove things in a bin, box, closet, or drawer. And Rick would go insane.
I don't think we talked about that.
No, I think we did. Because Rick and I just listened to that episode yesterday again. And he was cracking up because he was like, yep. We've been married 29 years, but you definitely shoved things in bins and boxes for a very long time when our kids were little. Because it was my version of the 10-second tidy because I didn't really know how to tidy.
Well, don't you know that closets and drawers are just for shoving things in?
Absolutely they are. No longer. Let's make that clear. Anyway, as we started doing like backstock, hospitality closet, Rick's, I guess it's kind of like my laundry room / workroom, and doing all these things, I realized that me stuffing things put them out of sight, which yes, put them out of mind, but then I couldn't find anything because I was in chaos. And I would spend more time, or Rick would spend more time, trying to find the things like the electrical probe that he attaches to like an outlet to see if it's hot or not. Oh yeah, baby, I know what that looks like. I ain't got a clue where it is. And he would spend 2 hours on a project around the house instead of 20 minutes because he couldn't find something.
That's interesting because I feel like with organizing, having those specific, concise locations, I say it saves time, but that's why it saves time.
Yes.
If you're not shoving things in a bin and you have it, we both have our linen closets labeled. Mm-hmm. Like I know travel bin, body care, hair care, we've talked about your facial care and the meat thermometer that's in there and your...
It's not a meat thermometer. It is an oral temperature thermometer.
Can't. Anyway.
All the nurses listening to our podcast will completely and totally understand.
Fine. That's fine. They can understand.
It's nowhere near as bad as the COVID tests in the feminine. I don't even know what it was.
The COVID test was in the feminine hygiene products bin.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't belong there.
So
anyway.
That creates chaos though, because
correct.
You can't find things.
Yes.
And that's why I label.
That's why it takes so much time when you're not labeling. And I think I've mentioned this before, is that I have clients that will say, no, I don't really need the label. I think everybody will remember. But then it's like you are then placing that heaviness on your mind of, I need to remember this. I need to remember where the cereal goes each and every time. Whereas when you open my pantry, you're like, oh, snacks, done. Like I can see it's, this or whatever. These are the baking supplies. And so, yes, it saves time. Having those concise locations, it's about that mental clarity, which is why I like the bins. I like the labels. Having it in a concise space saves you conversation. Frustration. Ryan doesn't ask me, except in the last episode I did confess the trimmer charger. Okay, but conversations like that do not happen regularly in our home. He's not asking me where things are because they're in the same spot that they were and it's labeled. He knows exactly where to get it. It's almost like in school, like in the beginning of the year, you're like, okay, these are the rules, blah, blah, blah. And then as you go through the year, you're like training your kids to be more independent.
Yep.
It's kind of like that.
So you just made me think of something that has been a conversation with me and a couple other people for quite some time. Our brains, as we age, as we take in more information, becomes a storage locker.
Ooh.
Right? So you're holding all of this information. And I'm going out on a limb here. I don't think that's necessary. Why do I need to store information in my brain that I can locate as long as I have a filing system in place to be able to locate it? So, for example, I'm a resource person. When it comes to therapy, I want to be able to provide my clients with evidence-based articles on things pertaining to screen time for your children, or the effects and impacts of, different medications or different theories that I present to them in therapy. I don't have time, space, or energy in my brain to hold all this information. But I have created systems on my laptop and little file folders that I can pull that information from or access it very easily without having to expend a lot of mental energy. So that frees my mental energy up to be able to provide my clients effective listening, my attention, because in the age of telehealth that we're in right now, we're doing things across a screen. And regardless of whether I'm sitting here in front of you or across a screen, my clients can tell if I'm distracted because I'm looking for something. So having that makes me more present. And the same thing happens with our space and with our energy and with our memories. So by having things labeled in your space, I don't have to expend the energy. If somebody comes to my house and says, do you have any Tylenol or
COVID tests?
Right. COVID tests or, tampons. I mean, whatever.
Right.
I don't have to think about where something is. You can locate it easily, so I don't have to expend the mental energy. Rick and I talk about this all the time. He is in a job that is very high stress, that is very fluid. He's constantly moving from topic to topic and thing to thing. And he doesn't always remember. And he's like, T, I am losing my mind. Like, I feel like I'm losing it. Like, no, your storage is just full. Like, get some of that out of there. Whether that's by taking time to just sit in quiet and let it go, or to make your space more efficient and effective for you so that you're not spinning your wheels constantly.
So what are some ways that if my mental capacity is full, I'm feeling like it's heavy, I'm keeping these thoughts in my mind, trying to remember all the things with home, work, things going on with Ryan, with friends, what are some ways that I can, even our listeners can too, start to almost like brain dump?
Good question. I love that. Getting into my jam now. There are so many different ways. Journaling, list making.
I love making lists.
That is one of the biggest things. I don't care if you use technology to make a list. I don't care if you're a pen and paper type of person. Woo, that was a tongue twister.
Paper.
Paper. I'm a pen and paper person.
Me
I
too.
like to see it written out. I like to check it off and highlight it. But being able to do that helps you also to then prioritize. So you can identify, okay, these are the things that are on the top of my priority list because they're the things that are most critical and heavy on my mind that I need to get rid of before I can focus on the next thing or make space for that friend that calls you at 8 o'clock at night and is crying because something happened in their life. When we don't have time to hold space for ourselves and other people, we feel kind of crappy.
And disconnected.
Yeah. So whether it's sticky notes, saying I need to do this or I need to do this so that you're taking the weight off of your mind, develop a system that works for you to brain dump. Because brain dumping is critical to being able to clear the mind to get to a place where you can then go, okay, I can think rationally through this. Because we know that like our prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain that does the reasoning and, all that thing. And when the other parts of our brain come online because of chaos, we cannot reason. Our prefrontal cortex is like, nope, I can't function right now because something else out there is taking over. And that's that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses, where we deer in the headlights or where we're running around like a mad person. We have to be able to reason in order to be able to function. So you got to get it out somehow.
And that just makes me think of clutter. Getting out the clutter in your space. But again, that goes back to the recognizing, and that clutter is literally things that you're just not using. I'm going to hang on to that for why. I'll need this just in case. I got a phone call yesterday from a realtor friend, and he is a client who he's connecting me with. And this is a woman in her 80s, is moving from a 3,000 square foot rancher to a smaller, like in-law suite kind of deal.
Ooh.
I just went through this with my grandparents.
You sure did.
And it literally is standing there and going, how do I declutter 40 years of stuff from this house? The collectibles, the clothes, the kitchen items, the memories. And it's like, again, memories don't live in those things, but the clutter weighs you down. And it's like making a list of the things that you need to get done or you have to get to. Physically, that leaks out into your space. We talked about, last episode, your space tells the story of your stress. It makes me think of like the piles of things, and if you're shoving things in bins and shoving things in closets, that is also just heavy.
Because you're not taking care of anything.
You're just shoving.
You're not actually dealing with the problem. And we talk about that all the time in mental health. We can put Band-Aids on things and, kind of, here's a little bit of I hate this term, but I'm going to use it.
Are you going to say mindful?
No, I'm going to say trigger warning.
Oh.
A little bit of a trigger warning here. I do not take the approach of recommending medication for a client before we've had time in therapy to try and get to the root cause of the problem. Because
which is smart.
Yes.
I wouldn't want someone to recommend medication for me, knowing me, for a couple sessions.
Right. Well, I mean, there are multiple things. If
Right.
somebody that has high anxiety where you need to get them to a place where they can function so that you can get to the bottom of things is one thing. So I'm not saying medication is bad by any stretch of the imagination. I am saying that for me, in my approach, I want to look at the whole person and try and drive down to the core of what's going on in their life before offering up accommodations.
Which makes sense.
Yes. So you got to get down to the root cause. And if you're stuffing things, or for years like I did, putting things in a bin or a basket or a box or a closet or a drawer, that wasn't helping me. It was displacing my negative energy.
Wow.
Throughout my house.
Interesting.
Yeah, sit with that one.
I know.
Because then everywhere you turn, the more energy you expend, the more time you spend looking for those things. Searching through stuff just creates more anxiety, more tension, more frustration, less time, less peace.
Yeah. So I guess the out of sight, out of mind really connects to when you are making those accommodations, shoving things, and not having a system. That is when you almost forget about it, because something that Rick would say, because he's like, if it's out of sight, it's gone. But I think the other side to that is if it's out of sight in a system,
Yes.
you know where it is.
It's accessible.
Yes.
It's like that filing system we talked about in our brain.
Yep.
You know, when we put things into categories and places, we do the same thing with our stuff. And maybe, this just spawned something for me. Maybe I can have an area where I say, okay, babe, here's a spot where if you need to sit or I can have a conversation with him. You know, where is a space in our home that we can sit these things that you need as reminders, and I'm still okay with, where it doesn't create tension or stress for me.
So this reminds me of the black bin that you have on your bookshelf.
Yes.
Remind me what's in there again?
So Rick comes home all the time and puts his keys,
comes home every day.
Wallet. Thank you, Jesus, that my husband comes home to me every day, because I am grateful for that. And that he works very hard. So he comes in and he carries keys. He has a wallet. He all these things, a badge, etc. And he used to come in and throw them either on the dining room table, on the credenza, on the shelf. And to me, when I see that, it's just cluttered mess. But for him, it was a reminder that there's that pile. I need to grab that when I walk out the door every morning. So I put a black wicker bin on the shelf that was deep enough to hold all the things. So our mailbox, keys, spare keys, there's even a lint roller in there because we have a white German Shepherd and hair is everywhere. So all the things go in there and you can't see it. So while it's out of sight, the basket then becomes a reminder that that's where those things are.
The basket becomes the reminder.
Yes, not the pile of, I want to say junk, and it's not junk.
I thought you were going to say something else, so
no.
Now I don't have to click explicit on Spotify when I upload the episode.
No, it's the tool that I used to condense the items becomes the reminder that that's where my things are. That's what I need. That's what I have to do. Or that's where I go to get.
And I feel like when things like that are contained, it feels better because they're not just out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The keys aren't on the dining room table. The badge isn't on the kitchen counter.
Correct.
The wallet isn't upstairs on his dresser.
And it makes getting out the door so much easier.
Yes. So that creates less stress, less tension, less chaos when you're trying to get out of the house. Can I go back to something for a second?
Please.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh,
sorry.
Gosh.
We talked about when you stuff something or stick something in a temporary space with the intention of coming back to it, but it's out of sight. You don't necessarily want it out of mind. You want to get back to it. Can you talk to me about that closet? So remember, you were like, things were just kind of shoved in there, but you had the intention of getting back to that.
Yeah.
What was your mental process when you thought about where to put that? And how did you determine that you were going to put it there and why?
It's a great question. I think for me, it felt chaotic. And that in my mind was my reminder to get back to it. When I came in here, I knew it was behind closed doors.
Okay.
I knew what that looked like. I knew I didn't want anyone looking in there. Again,
mental level of awareness.
So it was the mental load almost of seeing the closet doors reminded me how chaotic it is in there.
So I'm going to have you become the therapist.
Oh, fun.
We're going to switch roles for a minute.
I like this game.
How would you talk to a client if your client says to you, I need to put these things somewhere like I did when you came over, right? Mm-hmm. I did my tidy and I put things in temporary places. How would you best help someone in their environment set up reminders or be aware enough that they need reminders to get back to it until they have developed the cognitive mindset of uncomfortability like you've developed after 2 years of?
Yeah.
Because that's not an innate thing. It doesn't just happen. It's developed.
Yeah.
I used to stuff stuff and it could stay stuffed.
Stuff.
Yes.
I love that. And it could stay stuffed. Yeah. I think when I work with clients, honestly, I have so many thoughts, I feel like. I'm trying to
That's okay. Spit them
narrow
out.
down. Well, I'm thinking back to a client where we opened her closet and she was like, I don't even know how to tackle this. I don't even know what's in here. So again, it's that process. And no, I'm not talking about you.
It's okay if you were.
It's that process of starting. The process of starting is what stops people from decluttering. I almost have to get to a point where people feel comfortable getting started. And I talk about that in my guide. I talk about that on my social media of like, pick up the first thing that's on that pile. Take the first thing that you see. Hold it in your hand. Am I keeping this? Can it be donated, or is it broken? Is it trash? And it's kind of like having that decision and getting started is that first step to even then seeing like, oh, this closet is now an accommodation. I need to get back to it. But you have to start first. And it's not gonna, I don't know, like it's not gonna get there right away. Is this making, I feel like I'm not making any sense.
No, it does. It does make sense. And I'm kind of challenging that a little bit because that's great in theory to pick up that first thing and start somewhere. But how do you help a client realize that there is a space that they need to get back to? So it's even before that opening the closet and going, ugh, and starting the process. Even before that, how do you help someone identify that something is in need of being dealt with and that it's important? Is that something that you do, or is that something that they do on their own and that's why they call you?
See, I was thinking that. I'm thinking about this one client I've worked with for over a year. Almost every room in her house we've touched. And so then we have to go back to certain ones where it's like, okay, well, now that we've done the kitchen, let's look at your backstock. Now that we've set up the backstock, we can do your hallway closet. And like things just kind of, one space leads to another.
Right.
But I think that I don't know if I necessarily help clients realize that they need to get back to that. Most of my clients find me on Instagram and in person. So it's their recognition of a space that's like, oh, Bonnie mentioned that, a clear space is a clear mind, or, whatever. I mean, we all know a dark spot in our home that we don't want anyone to see. We close a door, our heart rate goes up a little bit. Like,
Yep.
I don't know if I necessarily in person directly have someone that's like, oh, come to my home and tell me what I need to do. Usually people come to me and they're like, I need help with the pantry because this is driving me nuts. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I got 3 kids. We're trying to make lunches, get out the door, get ready for now that school's back in full swing. I work, hubby work. Like it's just the chaos and the busyness.
They recognize it for themselves
recognize they're feeling stressed and anxious. Oh, and maybe it ties to my space. How do I fix that?
The recognition that comes before the contact.
That has to happen on their own because I cannot make someone see their chaos.
So that's kind of the whole purpose behind me asking the question.
Okay. Sorry, it took a little bit to get there.
No, it's okay. That's actually perfect. When we don't realize the problems with stuffing, we don't realize how it impacts us. And for a lot of people, they're like, no, it's not a big deal for me. So things like your Instagram, this podcast, things that people see online that trigger a thought or an emotion. Going back to the last episode, there are things that we see on television. There are things that happen in different parts of the country. There are things that a friend might mirror back to us that are all indicators, and our level of connectivity and awareness has to be the first step of recognizing, oh, that's a problem. I stuff things in bins, boxes, bags, drawers, fill in the blank.
Or just let it pile.
Right.
Maybe your stuff, maybe your closets, all of that is too stuffed that now it's literally leaking out into the rest of your space. It's almost like, when people, we look fine on the outside, but then on the inside.
Social media.
What do you mean?
We project that put together.
Our life is perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when you come into our home, you see that we're a hot mess.
See, I try so hard to be as authentic as I can be on social media because I don't want people to think because I'm an organizer that my whole home is organized and perfect.
It's not.
It's not. Go look in the other closet in my guest bedroom.
You hid a closet from me.
You can look at it. It has clothes in there that I decluttered from my closet and shoved in there because I am like cutting out sugar, trying to, lose some weight before our 10-year anniversary next year, which is, 9 months away or 8 months or whatever.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
So something that you have to look forward to, a goal that you are working towards, has created a mindset for you that you need to make a change or a shift.
Yes.
That's no different than our space.
I needed an end goal. I told Ryan I can't have healthy habits if I don't have a goal in mind. And I'm keeping that long term. Now, with clients in their space, they have that long-term goal too of I want to hit every spot in my house. Does it have to happen in a month? Absolutely not.
It cannot.
It cannot.
That will create more chaos.
And it'll come back like the debt we talked about.
Yep. That's the mental health journey. We talked about that in episode 1. The mental health journey takes a long time. So does this journey.
Yeah.
The recognizing, the developing a goal, the starting with one small space, and then getting frustrated and like, I just want it all done now. And it's not going to get all done now. So starting small, recognizing that it's there.
Yeah. So I have been thinking this the whole time in this episode of out of sight, out of mind. I almost want to change it to like, it's not that my stuff is out of sight, out of mind. It's that it's out of sight and purposeful.
So that's the end goal.
That is the end.
Is that it be out of sight and having a purpose, plan, and place. But in the beginning, out of sight, out of mind helps to develop a mental facade that it's got a plan, purpose, and place. Because if we don't see it,
right, it doesn't exist. It's gone.
Then we allow ourselves for a time, because you can't live in that space.
No.
You can't live in dismissiveness. That's a coping skill, and it's not a healthy one. So out of sight, out of mind, I think it all goes, and I think it's okay because the concept is there.
I think it's a step in the process.
There are all steps in the process.
True. It's like a pre-step. It's like if you are shoving things, you are in the decluttering process if you're shoving things in a bin. You've already started.
That's right. It's just not effective.
You've already started.
Or efficient.
Right. And then the next one would be, okay, well, I'm going to come in and help you clear everything out. And then we're going to decide where everything goes.
Yep.
And if you need it all.
Or you could do like I did initially and start with one bin and take the bin out. And sometimes, and I know this may be against your theory.
Oh, no.
And take a breath. Take a breath.
I
promise we'll close out with this.
I'm going to drink my coffee.
You do that because I'm going to close with this. So, nope, because I'm not going to let you have the opportunity to respond. You can respond in the next episode. So, maybe you're at a space mentally where you can't declutter a whole space. And you are a stuffer and you put things in bins or drawers, and all you can do is pull out one bin and determine what in there you need and then put it back. That's not ideal, but it's a step. And it's a step towards creating a pattern of doing that. And that's exactly what we teach in therapy, is to create patterns for yourself, because the more patterns you create, the more effective you become in sustaining those patterns. So I know it's against every ounce of your being, Bonnie, to sort through something and then put it back without necessarily having an organizational system. But some of the time, you just might need to take that one tiny step. So there.
Can I talk now?
Sure.
I'm just kidding. No, I agree with you, though. Just a tiny step.
So, out of sight, out of mind, baby steps.
Oh, I
Baby
like that.
steps, whatever that looks like for you. And maybe, again, we, keep coming back to these things. It could just be recognizing that that space really needs something.
That's it.
Yep.
That's all you got to get to is that needs to change. Speaking of change, our next episode is about change talk.
Yes, I love that.
I know. I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about rethinking our approach to organizing, mental health, all the things. So
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Oh, I love it.
All right. We'll see you next week, friends.
Have a good one.
Okay, bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Declutter Diaries. We hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this episode. Join our community, Bin Your Space, on Instagram and Facebook for more decluttering tips and inspiration. See you next week.